build communities and the way that we drive engagement has been changing quite a bit over the last several years. And like if you think about, someone like Nextdoor, their user is interested in a different sort of community than, say, someone from Patreon, a creator or a fan, or in a dating app like Wink from 9count, and et cetera, et cetera. And so how you build community and how you think about it can be really different and varied. It's kind of fun to see how people are thinking about it and doing it. And so I really was hoping to get some of these thought leaders together to talk about it, and it's really cool. And then, as I was
they weren't available, so I'm coming.
He's here all week. And then, as I thought about it, I was like, okay, well, who'd be great to lead this panel? And so Dick Stowe's obviously a legend in the industry, and we're grateful to have him. But
a legend.
Legend. But you started FeedBurner, and then you sold it right before everything blew up in 2008, and had a great outcome. And then you were crazy enough to join this little company with no revenue and maybe 40 or 50 people, and ended up changing the landscape of the industry, right? So super cool. And about the time you got done going IPO, not done, but by the time you got to IPO, about 2014. Terry, our founder, was just graduating from his Techstars class and founding Stream on the premise that, if you're building a community or a social app, etc., that you should probably have some sort of a feed capability inside your product with which for your community to communicate. So got that off the ground, and then outside of the feeds piece, customers were really demanding a different sort of interaction, and so we released chat as a capability. So between chat and feeds, there's billions of end users using Stream today, almost like an Intel Inside, where you don't even know you're using it, where companies like IBM and Adobe, all the way through Patreon and Nextdoor and Strava, and the next set of incubating apps that we'll see in the coming years. So from a Stream perspective, we kind of feel like we want to be a part of your journey. We want to be a part of helping you leverage tech, domain expertise, and all these great learnings we have from folks you'll see on the stage now and in a few minutes, to help you build and to help you achieve that vision that you're all achieving to strive towards. So with that as a backdrop, I wanted to pass the ball over to the legend.
Was a legend. No, it's the legend.
And then we can get some of the folks on the stage introduced as part of the panel.
Great.
So,
yeah.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks very much, Lou. Thanks for having me. We're going to talk a lot about in-app community and community engagement and management, and it's one of the, for people who haven't had to do that, it's one of the harder things you can do. And I have a bunch of questions related to it based on my own experience and some of the people here. But I thought what we'd do first is actually have each of the panelists introduce themselves. Nirav and I have known each other for years. I'm meeting everyone else here for the first time. But their bios, while rich and thorough, are also about 3 pages long, and we'll spend the next hour reading them. So I'll ask each of the panelists to give a brief introduction to themselves, and then we'll jump into the questions. Go ahead, Nirav, go first.
You want to go first? Okay, so Nirav Tolia, very nice to be here. My name is written on this and was inserted because the Chief Product Officer of Nextdoor was supposed to be here, and I'm the stand-in. I'm the CEO. I'm actually the founder as well. Started Nextdoor in 2010, ran it for almost 10 years, and then retired, and was very happy for the last 5 years or so, but 2 months ago I came back. And so running Nextdoor as a public company, which is a little different than running it as a private one, but it's a privilege to come back to the thing that you were part of creating, and that's a real blessing, although it's a real job, which I didn't have the last 5 years. But thrilled to be here, and Dick and I met in 2007. He had already sold FeedBurner at that point, and he's the best. He is the legend. Next.
Okay. I'm Michael Dale. I'm CTO at Caffeine TV. Really, thanks for having me here. I'm really excited to talk a little about communities. I've worked a lot in online communities, from Wikipedia to Crunchyroll and other very passionate fan bases that you need to sort of navigate a lot of different issues throughout. And so really excited to talk to you about that. And now we're taking those learnings into Caffeine TV for live streaming and sports content.
Cool. Hi, I'm Shoshana Cooper. I'm with girlgroup. We're building a technology platform to help connect and empower women in the U.S. Right now in Los Angeles, we just launched about 3 months ago. Before that, I was actually working with Alex at 9count on community over there on a whole slew of different apps. So after building a few communities with Alex, I decided it was time to start building my own. So now we're here, and we were lucky that we got to launch with Stream integrated already.
Hi everyone. I know whether this is working. Yeah. So my name is Alex Hofmann. I always enjoyed building communities in real life, and then got into tech. One of the communities we built was called Musical.ly. We sold it to a company called ByteDance. We had 60 million users, and they renamed it to TikTok. That was in November 2017. And then I also thought about retiring, and after 3 weeks I went crazy. So created a venture fund, did that for 10 months. And
That's retirement.
Hi Jeff. And then realized that I enjoy operating a company quite a bit, so created a new company called 9count. Got in touch with Thierry and integrate Stream in quite a few of our products. We built 10 different products. One of them got really good traction actually. GGV is one of our investors, Chelsea. So that's about myself. So pleasure to be here.
Great. Let's jump right in. The first thing I want to ask about is the ongoing challenge between, maybe Nirav, will start with you, between driving user engagement, but not over, blasting them. Facebook famously separated Messenger out from the core app, and the actual internal reason they did it was because they were bombarding users with so many direct messages that people turned off. It works better, it works even better, and then it doesn't work at all because people get annoyed and turn it off. So just talk about that a little bit. How do you think about balancing engagement? How do you know when this thing is driving engagement versus it's too much, it's turning people off?
I think it can be even more complex than that. Sometimes short-term engagement leads to long-term problems with retention. So the more interesting problem is you can do lots of things to drive engagement. As an example, if you've joined Nextdoor, and I hope you have, you know that we send a lot of emails. We can drive engagement by sending more emails, but I don't think anyone in the audience wants us to send more emails. And when we send more emails, we know we have more unsubscribes. We have fewer people that are visiting as frequently as they were before. And so this nuance of how do you balance between short-term movement of metrics and long-term, more retention-centric metrics, I think that's a really tough balance. It's particularly challenging when you go from having 0 users, which is where you really want to max out any kind of engagement because you're trying to get that community to have its fuel to get started, versus almost 100 million, which is where we are with Nextdoor. And it's a completely different challenge. And so it's more nuanced than people think, and if you get caught in the short-term metrics game, I think you can do a lot of long-term damage.
Shoshana, you've got a very targeted community you're building. How do you think about that? And then maybe as a follow-on question, talk about how you think about the communities within the community you're building.
Totally. So for us, if our product doesn't have user engagement, if every user who's on it isn't very engaged with the product, it essentially provides no value. The whole point of Girl Group is for women to be able to connect with one another and engage. And if you then go and send a message to 50 people and not get any responses back, that's a super disheartening experience and likely enough to end your time on our app. So because of that, we're really interested in going deep instead of going wide. And so we have launched with a pay-to-play model. So all of our users are paying subscribers, and we find that, while not realistic for all business models, of course, for us, it's been able to make sure that everybody has some skin in the game, and obviously when you're paying for something, you value it more. So it helps solve that problem. And as far as communities within the Girl Group community, they usually center around a common interest, so people are able to find other people who play tennis or go on runs or like to go on hikes and kind of assemble themselves in those groups, host reoccurring events, and it's really built out for them. So becoming engaged and attending real life things is easier for them, and they don't have the responsibility of planning that on their own.
Great. Alice, maybe talk a little bit about the kinds of community and communities you're building within 9count, and then from that, same question. How do you think about engagement and retention versus it's too much and it's too much and too inorganic?
So the trend that we've been seeing is essentially that social media became more media and less social. So our idea was, can we build the best platform for people to meet new people, whether this is friendship, dating, just creating an online connection, and now more and more a connection in real life. And we come to realize that actually AI is playing a big role. So the more tailored the content, in our case, people we show you, the more engaged you are. So if we show you, let's just say you are 20 years old and you love badminton and meditation and hiking, and we show you someone who is 40 years old and in a different position in their life and different focus points, that's not that valuable. So it's for us, the key is really as quickly as possible showing you some people that have commonalities with you. So it's all about step one, matching you with the right people. And actually Tinder is doing that quite well in the dating space. But then the second step becomes really interesting. So now you match with someone, and now you're in the chat with each other. And what we are building there is what we believe is important. We quickly need to use AI to find commonalities between the two of you. Let me tell you a brief example. I was once sitting with someone in the office for 3 months, and we just couldn't connect. There was just not much to talk about. This person was quite a bit older than I am. And once we realized that we share one hobby, we couldn't stop talking. So the key is what we want to do, and we'll discuss this with Stream as well, is, can we use AI to quickly analyze 2 user profiles, analyze the photos, analyze the bios, and find commonalities, and then use AI to suggest you what to talk about. So that's the first on engagement. Just make sure that there's a good match, make sure that there's a good conversation going using AI. And on sub-communities, we have not built out sub-communities within our app yet. We look very closely at Reddit, which is strong in doing this on the text basis. We thought about doing this maybe in the video space, but still experimenting with that, so not really a clear answer to that question yet.
Great. We're going to come back and talk about AI a lot more and how it can help foster community. I don't know if any of you saw Reid Hoffman interviewed the deep fake version of Reid Hoffman yesterday on Twitter. It was a real love fest. They kept complimenting each other. I started to not realize, couldn't figure out which one was the real Reid Hoffman after a while. But we do want to come back to AI. Michael, at Caffeine, how do you think about community and community engagement when part of what's really going on is your viewers? You're a viewer of Caffeine TV and you're watching, a participant. How do you get those viewers to collaborate and communicate with each other?
Yeah, I think so. We've had kind of a journey in terms of our app focus, and lately with the sports focus, collecting that interest up front was a change that we made recently that helped quite a bit in terms of finding that right balance of outreach. A lot of the content creators or these niche sports providers on the larger platforms have a lot of difficulty in sort of reaching their audience. So you may have 20 million followers, but then how do you actually reach out and send them a notification, hey, I'm live, this is our big live event, with sort of the interest-based onboarding within Caffeine and sort of that niche focus of that sporting category really enabled us to kind of find that balance in sort of that outreach to users and sort of against what they've explicitly marked as their interest, and then powered against sort of the GetStream feed API and sort of that personalization that we're able to put in place.
Great. Everybody's favorite topic who has to manage community is abuse. Nirav, talk about, as well as I'm intimately aware, lots of this is the result of people not knowing who they're talking to, not having full context for what the person's perspective was, reading a million things into what's just been said. Talk about, after having now, you and I've been dealing with this stuff for decades, talk about how you think about it now, what your perspective is on it, and how to best approach it.
It's a really tough problem because most of the time when you're building an online community, what you have created is a mirror of the real world. And in the real world, what we internally call hurtful and harmful content, that happens as well, right? The problem is when you're behind a computer screen, for some reason, you almost feel more at liberty to tap into that side of your personality. And so I think there are kind of three things to think about, at least the way that we assess this at Nextdoor, and it's been a huge problem for us. I mean, we challenge. I'll reframe it. It's been a huge challenge for us. You know, and there are opportunities where there are challenges, Dick. You know that, right? I'm still learning to get back in CEO mode, right? As a VC, which I was for the last 5.5 years, it was a problem. When I became a CEO again, it was a challenge, an opportunity. So the three things are, I think you have to be very intentional about the standards that you are creating at the beginning. So you can't just serendipitously say, everyone talk about whatever you want and we'll kind of see what happens, and if you're really aggressive, we'll remove you. I think that's not good enough. You have to be a little bit more nuanced. You have to think about what are the incentives, how have you introduced people to each other, are you using identity, are there ramifications for bad behavior? That's what I would think of as structure when you're creating one of these online communities. The second thing is you have to think about what's the adjudication mechanism when there is conflict, okay? And I think AI will play a huge role in this area, where traditionally, if I think about Nextdoor, where we have 300,000 unique communities, we've tried to activate members of those communities to be the judges of those conflicts, and it's very hard to do. But you need to have some process, because ultimately, if someone feels like they were in a conflict and they were mistreated, and then they go and raise it up to the company, and the company doesn't take their side, they're actually going to be not just, they're not going to just be a non-net promoter, they're going to be a net detractor, right? And then the third thing is, if you take a step back and think, what are some more interesting ways to solve this problem? I think you can always go another direction completely, which is instead of dealing with the hurtful and harmful content, you just increase the high quality content. So in effect, you're diluting the pollution, right? So we tend to look at all three of those things, and we think about how can we push on all three of these, and what's the right frequency of each of them in a given community around subject matter. We have a national election coming up. There are going to be lots of people talking about very divisive points of view on Nextdoor. These are people that do run into each other in the real world. So unlike some communities where you're never going to encounter the people that you're insulting, you may be going out to pick your mail up and you'll see the person that you were just really mean to. So lots of issues, challenges, opportunities, right? But I think AI's got a pretty interesting role to play, even if it's as simple as the Uber patient assistant who never, ever loses his or her mind when they're trying to adjudicate one of these kinds of things. If you have community monitors, by the way, in your companies, go hug them. Go thank them. Their jobs are very difficult. They're dealing with angry, mean, spiteful people all day.
Yeah, Shoshana and Alex, maybe talk a little bit about, you mentioned Reddit, so it's a good time to bring it up. Talk about can these communities moderate themselves? How do you think about that? Is that alone successful? Is that a good place to start? Shoshana, you go first, and then Alex.
Yeah, we have a unique situation because people in our community have had to go through a waitlist process to get in there, so there's a lot of wanting to be a part of it, and kind of an understanding when they're there that they're going to treat it with respect because they've waited however many days to join, or weeks, or months. We obviously, when people interact, there's going to be disagreements, and it's natural and it happens. So we have had community moderators kind of come out of the woodworks on their own to help out with that, and we have luckily not really had it, taken to the next step. I think another benefit we have is that this is a platform to make new friends and make new meaningful connections. This is not a political platform or a controversial place to talk about your hottest opinion that's going to stir the pot a lot. So for the most part, we really try and have everybody feel like there's no us versus them, which I think is how people feel when you're talking about the face behind the screen and not knowing who you're talking to. Everybody is talking to the group and that they're a part of, so there's a little more respect there, which has been really valuable for us. Another thing I wanted to touch on that you also mentioned is kind of teaching users how to use the product. So because we are in the early days, it's the most important time to really train everybody else, and our initial early adopters are so wonderful that when a new person joins the platform, they're scrolling through the feed, they're seeing what types of things people post, and they're essentially replicating that.
Alex?
I think I have the luck to not be a public company CEO, so I can be. So we created an app that allowed you to make more Snapchat friends. And you're right, it's a mirror of society, what you see online. And what we saw was just shocking. Like, not just on Snapchat or Reddit, but essentially on our platform, it came to the surface. And a lot of people were trying to sell content, sexual content. And we had to ask ourselves, what stand are we taking? And we just said, okay, 0 tolerance on our platform. If you want to do that, go to a different place. But there's two things, right? There's one, scammers, and then there's two people who just are mean to each other. Are you more interested to talk about the scammer part, or the people who are just behaving like...
The latter, the people who are just mean to other people. The scammers, there's, you're playing whack-a-mole with phishing attacks and so forth, but it's the comment Nirav made, when you're sitting behind the monitor, monitor, you can just feel a lot more at liberty to, hurl whatever insult you want to hurl at someone, knowing that they're not going to turn around and hit you. So just how do you guys think about dealing with that in your communities?
So right now in our app, it's still just one-to-one conversations, so there's no group conversations. So in the one-to-one space, it's obviously, you have two options. So one, you just do not engage talking with the other person, or two, you report that person. If a certain person is reported at a certain time, we'll make sure we take action as a company and ensure that this person is not harming other people.
Great. Michael, again, you've got a little bit of a different situation because you have these essentially broadcasters. Talk about the role of the broadcaster in managing their community versus, you've got super fans who also want to chime in and be the first one to ask a question, and that can also be annoying for the rest of the community who can't, get a word in. Talk about how you think about that on your platform and what's worked and what have you seen work from across different broadcasters?
Yeah, I think Caffeine had a lot of, for a period of time, we had a lot of, and still do today, have the battle rap communities, and sort of going to that effect, you really want to empower them to set their own rules in some respects, with initially approaching it with just sort of a generic content moderation suite really didn't fit that community at all, right? And so we had to empower them to define those rules and understand what was appropriate in that context would definitely not be appropriate in some of the other sporting community contexts, right? And yeah, not to give too many examples there, but it's just you have to sort of find ways to empower the people that are doing the broadcast and are the message, the sort of stewards of that community in whatever way is possible, and work with them and understand that it's not going to be this. There's not a universal truth to what needs to be moderated versus what doesn't need to be moderated. Different communities have different ideas around that, and trying to find a way to respect that is I think a learning that can have that work.
Awesome. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about innovation. One of the interesting things that happened at Twitter early on was that the community itself drove innovation. Hashtags were famously invented by the community, early Web 2 at the time conference to organize, discussion around the conference. Retweets were, it's just someone starting to type in RT, and then we built that into the platform from there. Talk about innovation within your platforms and how the community has helped foster that innovation. And I want to shift gears and talk about how you, as leaders, foster innovation within the company. Nirav, why don't you go first?
I think sometimes the challenge in Silicon Valley is you have really smart product development people who think they have all the ideas, and yet you have a steady stream of feedback that's coming back, particularly from your super users in a community product that get everything started. And they don't have the sophistication, they don't understand how hard this would be to build, they don't know if it would create competitive advantage, all the things that PMs and engineers think about, but they are in many cases using the product more than we are. And so in some way you've got to blend the two. What we've done that's been most effective, and it's not something we did in the early days, because in the early days you have no resources, so you do everything yourself. Now we have a research function, and the research function's job is to talk to the users all the time, and then not report exactly what the users have said. Because typically, you all know this, you read the bug reports. you read the feedback that comes in. But you're reading it and you're thinking, okay, these people are not very sophisticated, so they're not really giving me things. You know, they're saying things like, I want to do fill in the blank, and you say to yourself, we would never let them do fill in the blank, right? But the research group looks at all the feedback and starts to bucket the feedback into more thematic categories, and then that can be helpful. So to give you one example, we have many lost pets on Nextdoor. Many lost pets, right? And so we're always getting requests from people who lose their pets. Could you do this? Could you do that? Right? And we're thinking to ourselves, okay, we don't want to overwhelm the whole feed with this whole suite of tools that would help you if you lose a pet. That's not exactly a DAO use case anyway, if you're successful, right? Hopefully you lose your pet once in a lifetime, not once a day, right? So we keep getting all this feedback and we're kind of ignoring it. We're ignoring it. Ignoring the fact that if you actually help a pet owner find his or her lost pet, you're changing that person's life. That person is loyal to Nextdoor forever. And will go tell every other pet owner, you should join Nextdoor. So the research group comes back and says, look, they have a lot of ideas for overwhelming the feed with pet stuff. That doesn't make a lot of sense. However, is there an opportunity for us to create a subsection? You talked about a community within a community. Is there an opportunity for us to create a place just for those people who are very passionate about pets? It doesn't sound like innovation with a capital I, right? But when it comes to community, the innovations are the things that you can deliver to the community that they then build on themselves, right? So you can try this. I think it's actually kind of an interesting opportunity or just a trial for you, where you take the user feedback, you force all the PMs and the developers to read it, but you say, look, we're not going to do exactly and explicitly what has been stated, but we're going to try to infer from the feedback some directional things that we can try. And we found that to be pretty important. And it's important because a lot of times, these people just want to be heard. So even if you can go back and say, we listened, right? But it's hard if you actually say, we listened, and the answer's no, which is most of the time what we do when we get feedback, right? So just something to try.
Michael, you have broadcasters with lots of very strong points of view. Talk about how they've helped drive innovation within the broadcasting community at Caffeine.
Sure. I think on one level there's like the technical innovation aspect, like, oh, like, you know, our chat system works this way and they're like burning the chat into the video in certain ways, or community tools that get developed that hook into your API, like unsanctioned, and do all sorts of interesting games and interactive, you know, modes of interaction with the audience that, you know, we try to take those. I look at what's happening in the community and try to take those ideas in such that, you know, it makes it easier for them, or at least doesn't break it for them as often. And that's been one angle of the community, providing innovative ideas around the broadcasting experience. And then the other would be just sort of like, they really just want, like, often they're just trying to get something done, like especially in these smaller leagues that are broadcasting to multiple destinations, just the simplicity of the workflow and just doing the table stakes really, really well, providing that reliability, that consistency for them is just sort of like a platform building exercise that has to be very solid for live streaming to come off successfully.
Great. Shoshana?
Yeah, so I think one of the innovative things about girlgroup is the subscription model again. So many people told us before we had started that apps are free, and that we've set a precedent that when you join an app, it's free and nobody's gonna pay to be a part of this, when they could go on Facebook and make a Facebook group and just chat there. And we really set out to prove those people wrong, and I think we're on a good, on our way to doing that. You know, we've been very, very happy with our progress, and we've been live for 3 months now and have like hundreds of monthly paying subscribers. So with this new community of people who really value this product and really care about it, one of the most important things, in my opinion, that can separate us from a potential competitor is those people's access to feeling like girlgroup is their product as much as it is mine and our team's product. So I liked what you were saying about all these people have many ideas, and some of them are great and some of them are not great. More than building those features, those people just want to feel heard. And so building an outlet to take in that feedback and not just an email that never gets responded to, but an email that somebody is actually able to manage and send a response, they're most of the time reasonable. They understand the complexities of running a business and that odds are you're not going to be able to build their feature, but if you're able to send a response, not you yourself, but if a response is able to get sent that says like, I really appreciate the time that you took to give us this idea, thank you so much for being a part of it and for even coming up with this idea, that person is going to become a super user of your product.
This is where AI is going to completely change the game as well.
Totally.
Completely change the game.
Let's talk about that. Just throw that out to the group. Talk about how. Let's talk about the potential and the perils of AI and changing the game there. How will it help foster community and innovation within those communities?
Well, I think the notion of intelligent agents, which is a very common one when it comes to consumer applications of AI, is something that we're all looking for because we know that the key to building an online community is the human touch. Now, it's kind of ironic to say the key is human touch and we're going to use AI to do it. But this idea, I was just thinking when you were talking, how many times have I sent feedback to a company and never heard back? Most of the time, I never hear back, right?
But odds are it gets opened. Like
Maybe it gets open,
you know?
but I think I have to be pretty hot to take time out of my busy life to actually write to someone, and then I don't hear anything, right? So now to get back to your specific question, when I was retired, I was actually the executive chairman of a $7 billion early growth stage VC firm that had invested in Nextdoor. And so I've been looking at AI companies for the last 2 years. It's been really, I know that's extremely original for an investor to be looking at AI companies. But in particular, I was very interested to understand what are going to be the consumer applications of AI. We've seen a lot of enterprise applications, and they are justified immediately because they help the bottom line. But what about consumer applications? We have OpenAI, of course, right? But beyond OpenAI, where have you seen a consumer application? I mean, we've been using generative AI at Nextdoor, and it's actually been pretty successful. And to do that on a 100 million user base, I think it's one of the largest applications of Gen AI in the consumer landscape. But I haven't seen it yet. So as we think about it, it will be interesting to understand, can we make these experiences feel as rich with AI, right, as we do when we are actually humans that are interacting with the service? And I remember the early days of Nextdoor. I mean, it's such a magical time when you're building a community, when you're actually responding to every one of those messages that comes in, right? And those early adopters, the more love you give them, the more they will give you back. So even that very simple application of AI where you say, look, we're going to have an intelligent agent, and that agent is going to be very attentive and essentially summarize for us the feedback that we're getting, that we know is valuable, but do it in probably a smarter way than we can, I think that's going to be groundbreaking. It's going to make every community have the potential to be smarter about what it's building.
Now let's talk about the role of AI in one-on-one community, one-on-one communications, and how you think about it.
You know, it's interesting for our platform, so you match with someone and then you don't talk with them. Or usually guys write, hey. And we got the feedback from some of our female users, I'm getting 2,000 heys a day. So we figured out we want to help our men on the platform a little bit and use AI and just really help them to get the conversation started.
Here's some other words you might have used.
Hello.
No, just write it for me.
Yeah, so it's just sometimes, gender stereotype, but sometimes a certain gender needs a little bit of help to get a conversation going. And so we are using AI to make this possible for our users.
And Michael, you're nodding. Like, talk about the potential.
Yeah,
how does AI fit into the future at Caffeine?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's that aspect of attentiveness that you can't necessarily give at scale easily, right? Like, so as you join one of these mid-level league games, like catch me up on the game, like you can get all that context. Like you feed the transcript into this bot, and then the LLM's able to really produce really useful summaries, or just as an agent of interactivity. Like how can we like prompt users to get more engaged with the broadcast? We know as users upvote chat messages, or as users type in messages, or anytime a user like takes that next step beyond just watching the content, we know that maps into longer commitment and engagement with the product. And so can these bots, like as they're feeding in, you know, the entire transcript from the announcer, like create little moments like, you know, is that person really playing with the most heart, or who's this, you know, like little polls and little ways to like drive that engagement of the user, and at the same time empowering the broadcaster or the community owner that's, you know, acting as a liaison between the AI and the community that's chatting. But ultimately, like really just driving deeper engagement is what we're looking to accomplish with our next phases there.
Awesome. I have one more question, then I'm going to kick it open to the audience. Shoshana talked about the fact that she's charging membership for access to her community. What are the other non-advertising monetization opportunities across these platforms? Let's go in order. Nirav, you go first.
I think the really obvious one is e-commerce now, particularly if you take, you know, some kind of topical content and then you mix it with AI a little bit so you have a user profile and then you can actually just recommend something. So I think you're going to see commerce as the next great non-direct subscription base of revenue. And I think that'll actually become somewhat of a commodity. You already kind of see it, like Instagram has become an e-commerce site. I'm sure you all realize that, right? And so I think you're going to start to see that across the board.
Yeah, similarly, like getting leagues to be able to sell their merch within their context. We're seeing, you know, we do digital props or stickers, sort of like recognition that you're, you know, engaged fan. You can basically drop a little digital animation, you know, similar to the other streaming services. There's pay-per-views, there's subscription services. We do a lot of different ways to try to drive monetization on top of advertising.
Alex?
No, I've been using this product called Yuka. Does anyone know that? Y-U-K-A. So you essentially can go to your fridge or to any product, scan the barcode, and it tells you a score from 1 to 100. Ideally, the score is 100, so it's a good product for you. Not so good if it's 2, 3. Unfortunately, especially the United States is very, very good with marketing. So you see all these products, and marketing, and telling you how good this product is for you. And then you scan it and you're just like, oh my goodness. So I've just been smearing lotion on myself that has a grade 5 for the last 5 years or so. But it looks very healthy. And I was like, oh, this is probably good for me. And now what this product start doing, which I think is genius, they start e-commerce, recommending you which product instead would actually be very valuable. I believe and you will see it now, obviously, with Instagram, TikTok, and other platforms that, you know, social commerce, e-commerce is just going to be very, very big.
Let's throw it out to the audience. I could do this for another hour or so, I'll throw it up to the audience for questions. This is that awkward moment where no one in the audience has questions. Jeff.
So you mentioned the Reid Hoffman. Sorry, I don't know. You mentioned the Reid Hoffman thing. I don't know. You probably hear me. I mean, we've seen some incredible avatar, you know, type in, here's me live sitting on the beach. And it just, when you see the demo of these technologies, your mind just goes to like, how am I ever going to be on a Zoom again and even know, like my kids are just going to be able to type in responses, they'll be sitting on a beach and it'll show them in their, you know, in the classroom, whatever. Like it's so realistic today.
Yeah.
And there's a great statement that Sam Altman says, which is like, today's the worst it's ever going to be.
Right.
Like every day from now on, it's going to keep getting better and better. And so I just wonder, like, where do communities go when it's going to be really hard to know what's real and what's not real? And the level of imagery and sophistication is just, it's going to be insane, like beyond anything we've ever seen in Hollywood level.
Yeah, agreed. I had someone comment on the Reid Hoffman video to me yesterday. Oh, you can totally tell which one is the AI. I'm like, oh, if I'd shown this to you 18 months ago, your head would have exploded. Yeah. It's not going to get worse.
Yeah, so the question is like, what does that mean for communities? Because
I mean, I think Dick is actually one of the people who's come up with the innovation on this already, which is, you know, the blue check. We're going to need something like that in online communities, right? So if you think about the social platforms today, if you're a known personality, you get a little blue check next to your name so someone knows that it's actually you. And there will be some version of that, and I think it won't be ubiquitous, but we will learn to value the interactions that include that blue check more than we value the interactions without. We won't not value the interactions
almost
without.
like a KYC for social media.
Yeah, exactly right.
So I'm not really sure that I can go that. So I'm CEO of us, a company that's fully in VR, and we've actually seen people loving the, it's much more than the humans. So, it might totally go in that direction. So.
Yeah, I mean, look, in many ways, just think about a zoom filter. A zoom filter makes us all look better than we are in real life, and so people prefer that. So I think for sure you can actually do more interesting things. I mean, the Read AI speaks Italian. That's not something Read can do. So there are absolutely going to be things that are actually better about the AI versions of ourselves. But it's a little bit like, if you do FaceTime with someone, it's magical, it's incredible, it's like the Jetsons, but it's so much better to be like this, even though he doesn't have his filter on, right? You look better without the filter, just telling you that. So I think that there can be I said it maybe the wrong way, it can be a superior experience to engage with an AI, but there can still be a premium on IRL, right? I think that's the way that I think about it.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I would think about it in terms of sort of status, and like if you look at sort of video games, like the large multiplayer RPGs or what have you, that you still have like this status related to the attention of a human that has value versus the status of the attention of bots and entities that are not human, right? And why would people play those games for status? So similarly, as the AI becomes more and more harder to understand what is real, what is not real, you'll still have sort of that limited economy of attention that ultimately sort of drives status and is something that is of value. And so it'll have to boil up to the blue check mark or to something that is, limited, right? Has scarcity, right? If it doesn't have scarcity, then it can't have value in a sense.
Anything else to add?
Yeah, I just think that we're more interested in how we can use AI to enhance human connection instead of replacing it. I think the thought of replacing it is petrifying, and I hope that people still value human connection, and I would feel passionate about doing things to enable that for sure. So for us, looking at AI applications is more like, finding common interests and helping people break the barriers that they face in real life to connect one-on-one to enable those connections to be even better.
Other questions? Anything else?
How do you all think about influencers and how you have to leverage them in your platforms? It's amazing to me how one influencer in the right spot, in the right moment, can drive tremendous engagement. So how do you think about that when you're
Take a shot at. I mean, we've had varying degrees of success around that. I think I would go back to those audiences aren't necessarily easy to bring off of that context. You have that influence and power within the realm of that social network that you're a prominent influencer on. In some sense, I guess there's definitely carryovers that counter that example, but it's just been interesting to sort of navigate the attention economy as an upstart direct-to-consumer application and try to find that that magic to continue to grow a community off of that off of the central platforms, if you will.
The influencer space. I had a lot of experience with Musical.ly on this. A lot of big creators today came from Musical.ly. Now they're on TikTok. Now they are very influential, but interestingly enough, we had one user, she had 2.6 million followers. She tried to sell her t-shirt line and she sold 2 t-shirts. So what I want to say is a lot of influencers might not have the influence one might think they have. But we have been using influencers to get our communities going if they're in the right spot. It does help, but often it doesn't.
You're reminding me of, there was a point in Twitter's history where Rupert Murdoch became addicted to Twitter. And finally his son James said, "Dad, just because you have 2.6 million followers doesn't mean you're leading them anywhere." I think that's all we have time for, so thanks very much. The next panel is almost up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can't wait to see you. So we'll figure out.
Yes. Good to see a friendly face.
Set me up wherever
Yeah.
to stay.
100%.
I'd love to stay with you guys.
100%.
Thank you.
How's it going? How are you? Good to see you. You're sounding real live, right? I think so, yeah. Property manager, the gardener. No, I don't. Last 7 years. Alex moved there. We're doing very well. Yeah, we go through our last name. That's a amazing name that you got over there. I do it. It's not those things are boring. Hey, dude. I'm actually CTO of Michael cousin. Oh, yeah. So I was like, as soon as I was like, let me say hi. So we're first cousins. Amazing. Yeah. Do you mind if I take a picture and send it to her? No, let's do it. Yeah, so this is my buddy at the do you mind taking a picture? What's she up to?
She just had a baby at 46.
Shit, that thing is like blinding.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
And she's
Let's go back that way.
just had a baby, built a house in Napa.
Amazing.
There's kind of a celebrity around here. Thinking about for a decade, they had me.
Oh, really? Great job.
I would think it makes sense. No, I'm not. We're doing almost all three of the islands. Yeah, we're one in the parts of the islands. Trying to weasel my way in. I helped work at Patreon.
Be on the lookout for new product experiences, right? Is that right? This is one of my guys right here.
Yeah, you guys expanded Oh, we love it, man. Chat's Is there any evaluation? I got a lot of really funny questions. They're a big challenge, like, I'm sure, how does this work?
Yeah, I always see this. We have a top notch.
Yeah. The office helps us take care of the office too.
That's when they like it.
We're a mix.
Sound great.
Yeah, so with how about you guys all we ended up using in-house the chat There was a girl
quality of the panel is the number that's the highest
she's like brunette.
you have like
She's a musician too.
the fun things that the guys that they get. I'm an expert in consumer growth.
Yeah, pretty cool panel.
From 180 to 200. is hilarious.
Yeah.
He did our sales week. When were you at Twitter?
2009. They hired me. It's an interesting neighborhood. But that's what we're all about. There's a person in the ad
There's still some characters we get from like we love working with George. Give him our regards. Yeah. My friends who work there. How long have you been Patreon? You're out of the SS office, right? Part of Microsoft at some point. How many employees are you?
Yeah, about remote within
I want to get out to the New York office. Say hi. Yeah.
It comes to you and it's not much of it.
Anything you do this fix, yeah, Sam on the product side, Pageau, and the rest of the team, it's on great. As well.
We've got some folks like that. In their neighborhood, they're proud of their journey. We have just got those those kinds of things. Actually, at the beginning of Nextdoor, we created the neighborhood. So people grew Polygon and they named their neighborhood, which one person so you went over and that's what happens. People accurately can nominate other people. So usually when you have like the voice or like turning off or like helping people like explain them or like the right idea. If you're not easy enough to do that, much smaller. If you live or I mean areas we met the players or agents that's where the city until like the AI came out. You can literally like draw a boxing like that by service areas and get everybody from the CS team. You don't have to wait for it to get followers and maybe customers or following you. You just give it to you in one shot.
Lots of exciting things happening with Patreon.
Yeah.
Reviews for iOS and Android.
Each unique and good targets like who to go to the phones, how alert, things like that.
You guys are pushing that code on
It's a different way of doing social. The flip side of that is because everything's local, virality is limited. It only goes so far. Yeah. We're getting called.
Yeah, I'll take that.
Yeah.
Naturally, that'd be where my
How do you know if this thing
actually.
Good.
You know what? Grab a plate. Grab a plate. Why not?
Okay, awesome. All right, I think we'll do sort of a similar thing as we did a second ago and just allow each one of you guys to share a little bit about who you're with and sort of what your role is.
Yeah, I'm Chris. I'm CTO of Girlgroup. Yeah, Shoshana kind of covered it the last one, but that's about it.
Hi, I'm Felix. I'm the head of engineering for core products at Nextdoor. We cover basically everything you see in the customer application, search, messaging, feed, and every other feature we have out there.
Hi, I'm Sarge. I'm with Patreon. We are a place where creators can build direct relationships with their fans and get financial value out of that relationship. I lead the engineering and data science teams at Patreon. Before Patreon, I was at Google and at Twitter, and I worked with people today. And it was great to see him again. Yeah, excited to be here.
Hello everyone, founder and CEO of Stream Theory. Been doing Stream for 9 years. Before that, I founded a social network with hundreds of millions of users and eventually sold, but we used to build all of our tech in-house, which was both a lot of fun and not always such a great decision. So started Stream, and we power activity feeds and chat for over 1 billion end users.
Awesome. So the big topic these days is always the word community, right? People use it for different reasons, etc. But there's entire initiatives called community or communities that we're seeing from our largest customers and our small customers that are just getting started. And I think all three of you, are working hard at community right now. So I think I'll start with you, Felix. So you have a big presence, you have a big user base, many millions of users. You had chat, you have a feed running. How are you trying to leverage technology to actually roll out your view of the world of a community?
I mean, I think we kind of need to go define what a community is for Nextdoor. Nextdoor is all about neighborhood. So essentially, when you sign up, you get dropped into a social network. You don't have to build it. That represents your neighborhood. And you can talk to the neighborhood a little bit around you, but that's kind of what you get. And what we've realized is that works great for a lot of things. Any announcements you want to do, anything you want to do that kind of like involve a larger community, that's great. You're already in, it's super easy to get going. But a lot of our users are also telling us that they want to connect with people that have similar interests. You want to connect with other people that do gardening. You want to connect with other dog owners. You want to connect with other people. It's not everyone in your neighborhood that actually has the same interest. So we're trying to add other layers. These are essentially micro social networks, where you go join that community and then you're able to talk about a specific topic with like-minded people so that you can easily find your tribe, essentially. So we want to try to like help you do that. For us, we started looking at like what a community looks like. We have an existing groups product. It's essentially a feed product. Feed product are interesting. If your interest is to try to go scream in a crowd, that's kind of what it does. One person posts and it's just like blasting something out there to every recipient. We decided to like work with Stream actually on that and go like a chat-based community because we want people to actually talk to each other. We want people to have like frequent conversation, lots of back and forth, doing it essentially in real time. And like that's really the direction we decided to go because we want that kind of like that tight connection between people, which is different than our main product, which is a feed base, which is great for announcing anything else.
So in that topic though, how, because this group is really deep technical group, right? So when you think about the actual technology challenge there, what were some of the challenges that you had as you were thinking about how you were going to achieve this goal, and and how did you solve for it?
Yeah, I mean, you break your communities in a couple of pieces. You got to do your user and membership management. You got to do the identity definition of what the community is, what it's about, all the assets the community has, and you got to do conversation. And I haven't heard an engineering manager said they ever have too many engineers on the team and they don't know what to do with them, to be really honest here. So for us, we had to pick and choose kind of what battle we want to be in. And if we can actually leverage an existing piece of tech that allows us to get the conversation piece going by doing very little effort, we can actually invest our resources in the other pieces we wanted to get right, which was identity and membership management. So for us, it was a question of like prioritizing where we put our effort, what we end up doing, and like that gave us the ability to like bring to market very quickly.
Awesome, thank you for that. And then Utkarsh, you came from Twitter, right, where you were doing advertising engineering, and then over to Patreon, which is a slightly different approach towards building community. You have a wide variety of folks that would love to talk to every creator, and the creator has to find a way to create their community. How are you thinking about the word community and how you're leveraging technology to actually drive that engagement?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I've been reflecting on like the evolution of social media. I worked on Twitter when the running joke was Twitter is about telling the world what you have for breakfast. Obviously, we've come a long way from that, and I think the current direction that social media is headed in is incredibly like isolationary. Like, you know, the doom scrolling on Instagram Reels and TikTok, hyper personalized to you. My wife and I would spend like 15 minutes each of these products and yet not have anything common to talk about because we're being served such hyper-tailored content to our tastes. And I think in a world where like social media products are headed that way, there is an increasing need for creators to find a way to bring their most loyal fans together and have a space where they can converse on the topics that are interesting to them. So that's how we've been thinking about community, is like the direction of social media is actually tearing these communities apart, and we seek to be the place where these communities can come together again, a place where fans can come together to talk with their favorite creator and about their favorite creator. And yeah, we launched last year. We've seen great success with the product already, and we're doubling down here and going deeper. Yeah, in terms of technology, again, similar answer here. Like for us, it was a jumping off point. At Twitter and at Google, I have built chat products, and in both those companies, we did it all ourselves, and it takes a long time. At Google, I had a 10 to 12 person team just building the chat backend and making sure that every user gets notified, and all the mobile SDKs. It's a lot of work that's we're just able to be taken off our plates. It's been a great advantage in terms of reducing time to market.
Awesome, thank you. And then Chris, you're at the beginning of your journey.
I am, yeah.
Yeah, and so you don't get to have a team of 12 probably that are...
mainly me, and then we have 2 contractors as well.
Right, so how are you thinking about, because like, it seems like a big part of Girl Group is to amplify the voice of women and kind of empower girls to actually find their voice, etc. So how are you thinking about the technology that you're going to, you know, develop and kind of release to actually create that place that's sort of comfortable for people to share and be empowered?
Yeah, so I mean, right off the bat, going 0 to 1, having as many SaaS products, you know, to do a lot of the heavy lifting for us is amazing. You know, Stream has been a godsend because we don't have to focus on the really intense chat building, you know, in-house and stuff like that. So I can not focus on, oh crap, it has to be real-time notifications or real-time, you know, this person is online, and I can just be like, great, Stream, awesome, fits right in. As far as technology in the future, I mean, you know, there's going to be a lot of AI is real, and I'm sure we're going to implement it at some point. I'm sure we're going to touch on that later on in the panel, but you know, it's like Shoshana mentioned, where every user is paying right now, so everyone's creating their own community at the moment. You know what I mean? So you have to want to be there. You know what I mean? So I'm going to pay the whatever $10 or $20 membership per month to join this community and say, great, I'm with like-minded people. We're going to do like-minded things. I'm going to meet people that I can, you know, go out with in real life. And I think we're doing a good job so far for only being here for what, 2.5 months. You know, so knock on wood that continues.
Well, it's a good question. Like, so you've got 2 folks to your left, and actually the founder of the technology that you're using today, you're having some good luck with. But like, if you were starting from scratch today, in the way that Chris is starting, what lessons learned or advice would you give Chris from the panel?
I can go with this one. I would say think about what makes your social network distinctive and unique, and spend your time there. Look, people have an expectation that social network comes with all the bells and whistles, and that's kind of set by like early movers like Facebook and things like that. Like I lost track of how many options Facebook has in the hamburger menu, and that's because they couldn't fit all of them in like the bottom map. There's so many products in there. Like you can't compete. You won't be able to like move 500 people to go build something. So you really gotta be like, okay, what am I doing that's different? What am I doing that's unique? Spend your resources there, and if you can offload what is not unique, what is not special in your social network that just there as a utility, that's kind of the way you're going to win. Otherwise, you're going to spend all of your time building what other companies have done 2-3 years before you, and you're just going to be lagging and lagging and lagging somewhere.
Yeah, thanks for those. I don't know, Ukarsh or Cherry, if you have any additional insights there.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in user delight. I think one of the advantages of using Stream is that it lets us focus on that higher layer and focus on really the parts of the user experience that are going to bring users delight, and that depends on what is unique about your community, why are people gathering. So for us, one example is people are gathered around the creator, and we have been focused on how do we give the content creator superpowers within the chat. So something we rolled out recently was the idea that creators can react to messages using video stickers. There's a delightful UI treatment around that, and it's something that creators are super excited to use, and it makes the fans feel closer to the creator. So I think, just focusing on that user delight element is huge. And second, for communities, it's like bigger is not always better. Actually, sometimes smaller is better when it comes to community. The more tight-knit you can make the community feel is better. And I think in terms of what you want to incentivize in the product is probably a large number of smaller communities rather than a small number of large ones.
Awesome. So Cherry, you like to always talk about providing components and giving app developers an opportunity to build multiple components with some consistency. Can you talk a little bit about how you think about components and supporting and powering applications?
Yeah, there are a couple ways that I think a lot of people try to do reusable components, and usually it didn't really quite work out. Before Stream was around, there were companies that tried to do chat. It's been something that's been tried, but often people start. I think a couple things are needed. Like, it needs to be like flexible enough that no matter what the designer comes up with, no matter what your team comes up with, that you can meet those designs, and the team has to feel confident that you can be that flexible. And then it has to work as you scale, right? Not just from but from a pricing, from like a scalability, performance perspective. I think those are some of the things for reusable components. To be true, you have to be very flexible. You have to do well at scale. I think that, and for like early stage social networks. So like before Stream, I did like a social network, and I think every social network has its own kind of like growth engine. In our case, it was very influencer driven, so all the technology around that promoted the growth loop around the influencer was really well done, and everything else, well, we did have messaging, but like messaging wasn't even, and right, like so everything else was really kind of shitty, but like the growth loop around the influencer, all the tech worked really well. So I would say that like it's good to align the product and the tech strategy to be really focused on whatever is the growth loop, and I'm actually kind of curious around that. Like, if you look at girlgroup, like how do people find out about it, and how does it grow, and how does it?
I mean, primarily we're word of mouth right now. I mean, we did a little bit of advertising for our first couple of events, but one person comes to the event, they're like, this is amazing, I met X amount of friends, so-and-so my friend, I'm going to bring them to the next one. And, I mean, we're not doing any advertising in other countries, but we're getting people from around the world to actually try to join up. And, it's exciting.
That's great. And all three of you have been a part of scaling and large scale and scaling fast, and also part of an evolving and changing ecosystem. So like Ukarsh, you come from Twitter, and then you go to Patreon, which is a whole giant community of millions and millions of users. And then Felix, you've got tremendous experience from Facebook as well, right? And so I think it'd be really cool to hear what challenges you faced in scaling? Like what are things technically when you start getting the volume and the engagement, like, okay, here it comes, and there's like a tidal wave of users coming in. What are sort of the challenges that you've faced, and sort of what are some lessons learned you might share?
Yeah, go first. Super fun stories from Twitter. There was a time when lights went out at the Super Bowl. I don't know if anybody remembers here. There was a time when in the halftime show, lights went out, and the world already watches Super Bowl when Twitter opened, but at that point, everybody was on Twitter to figure out what happened, what's going on, and we saw a traffic spike that was unreal. Fortunately, we handled it, but honestly, I think this is about being prepared. So a lot of it comes down to really having the tools for developers to be able to simulate these events. Load testing is a key part of scaling strategy. For me, it's also about developer efficiency. Huge believer in having a team that's focused on empowering developers, making sure that they can not only do load testing, but other kind of injection of files, like what happens if your database fails? What happens if, not the stream is down anytime, but what happens if that happens? So your application needs to be engineered to be tolerant to that. And most often organizations will only code for the happy path. That's the most frequent way one can run into situations where the first time you encounter a non-happy path, the whole thing falls apart. So yeah, just thinking about that from day one, and engineering around that as well help scaling.
Awesome. Chris, Felix, you guys have an opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I girlgroup is relatively new, but I've worked with relatively scaling companies before, and CI implementation is your best friend and worst enemy, because you're going to have a lot more red tape to jump through, but just to make sure everything is integrated well, and making sure you're not just on the happy path, you're testing all the other edge cases. But I mean, at the same time as you scale, you're going to have more hands on deck. So I mean, there's more people that will carry the load of a single feature. You can split one feature that one engineer was doing for 1 week up to 3 engineers now, and they're taking a piece of that feature. Yes, there's more process, but at the same time, yes, there's more people that actually get that over the finish line.
Awesome.
I'm going to jump in. I think that as you're working scaling product and scaling system, you cannot design for order of magnitude more scale than your business has. It's going to cost you too much money, too much time, you won't be able to get it done. What you need to do is you need to design a system that does not have obvious single point of failure. Having a single server through all the messages are routed in your messaging system, or having a way of listing conversation that struggle to take additional load and things like that, because that's just going to take down your engineering team. At the beginning, you don't have a lot of people. You need to be able to not spend a lot of time on ops so that you can actually develop the product. So if you can avoid those things at the beginning, it gives you more bandwidth along the way to keep scaling, keep building more and more scalable system, keep doing research on what you want to do. When your user actually, or in San Francisco, your user start typing a message and then they get in the Muni and then there's no reception on any carrier whatsoever, and they get at the next station and someone has responded. Is the message going to show up? Is it going to show up in the right order? Things like that are fancy or problem, but once you start being part of the daily life of the users, you want to get that right. And that means that if you're bogged down trying to always fix issue with your original system, you're never going to be able to get that done. You're going to be stuck in a forever on-call Seb 1 loop, and it's going to be bad.
It's interesting because, you might be asked, hey, what does success look like? And in the past, it was well, how many users do you have? And then now, for Girl Group, if you're probably going to, if you go to raise funding, et cetera, you're going to be asked, well, now how many paying subscribers do you have? So you guys have optimized for paying subscribers. What metrics, because you're kind of caught between the business and the technology, you just talked about measuring success, et cetera. What are the metrics for each one of you that you are held accountable to and that you hold your team accountable to that are the most important in, are we actually making progress, are we being successful? Start with you, Nirav.
Yeah, sure. So Patreon is a place where creators go to make a steady income from whatever they're doing, and we have a very wide range of creators. So we started with just this metric of total payment volume. How much money are we sending to creators? That was the metric we had for the first decade of our existence. Most recently, we've also added another key metric, which is sort of at parity with the payments volume, which is around how active are the communities that these creators have. So if we strive to be the place where fans are bringing together the communities, we need to have a way to measure, are people participating, are they active in those communities? So we have this term internally called active creator fandoms. And we have a measure for that, and that's a top-level metric for us, at parity with payments volume. And the thesis being that it doesn't matter if the creator is monetizing today. As long as they have an active and thriving community on Patreon, they will find a way to monetize it over time. It might be through subscriptions, it might be sale of tickets to the next show, it might be merchandise, and that in many ways is downstream. But community engagement is the most important for us.
How about you, Felix?
I mean, I have to go with community engagement as well. If people don't use your product, who are you building it for? But you got to start looking at the business model after that. We've got people that are working like subscription product, we're working ad-based model. That's the way that Nextdoor run. So for us, one of the things we're looking at is like, hey, out of all of the engagement that we get, how many ad opportunities can we generate? Because if we don't show an ad, we don't get a single revenue, and we still got to pay AWS and the rest of our supplier because, yeah, it's costing some money for every single request that we get. And then we start going kind of one level deeper. We start looking at our communities, and we're like, okay, like communities are not all the same, but what we really want to know is like, how many good communities do we have out there? Because it's really easy for people to like run script or like get a growth team, start generating like gazillion of communities, and then nothing happened in any of them. So you want to know like how many of your communities are actually active versus just placeholder that like generates spam. Once you get that, you start looking inside of your community and you're like, okay, what's the percentage of my users actually participating in that community? Like you can have 5,000 members in it, but if it's only 20 people talking, it looks very different than a community that has 20 people and 19 of them are talking. So you want to kind of understand like how dynamic and vibrant your ecosystem is. The more vibrant, the more engagement you get, the more active the average user is, you know you're going on the right path. That's when you start seeing the hockey stick curve and everything starts going well, the company makes money and you IPO. So like that's always the thing that like we're looking for, is like understanding like how vibrant our communities are, and if they're not, let's go find the difference between the one that are successful and the one that aren't. Is it that they have an active moderator? Is it that they're using feature that the other one are not? Do they have settings turned on that the other one doesn't? Maybe we should change our default for all the new communities that get created so we get the right settings and things like that. So we can kind of like help lubricate essentially the ecosystem.
Awesome. And then Chris, do you have, outside of paying subscribers, do you have a...
Yeah, I mean, community engagement is really important as well, you know, I'm echoing that for sure, but I also think length of community engagement, you know, because we want to make sure our users are having a good time and consistently having a good time. So if we see churn, you know, and if we see people that are stopping subscriptions or may have a couple of posts and then they haven't posted for a while, I mean, that should be a signal that there should be a way that we should be reaching out to these users better. You know, because at the end of the day, it's user experience. You know, I mean, this is going to lead to, you know, more paying subscribers. They're going to recommend it to their friends. If that, you know, basically that.
Awesome. That's great. Okay, so I think we're going to open it up a little bit to the audience to ask a few questions. Does anybody have any questions for the team up here? Brian.
Yeah, thank you for a great panel. So with community engagement, you know, I understand that's like the metric, but within that category, what are we talking about? Is it number of posts per day? Is it number of likes per piece of content? Is it, you know, what kind of metrics are you looking at within that umbrella of community engagement to determine is this a successful community or not?
So we're looking at two types of users. Those who are viewing the community, so they may be reading and not doing anything else, and then the smaller subset of those that are not only reading but also interacting. So they might be making posts themselves or emoji reactions or replies to the messages. And we have thresholds on each of these. So if a community is considered healthy only if the viewing members are above a certain fraction of the total number of people in the community, and same for interacting. It's a lower threshold, but it needs to be above that threshold. And then what we've done is like manually inspected some of the communities that kind of fall into that definition or don't, or fall short of that bar, and do some sort of human evaluation on whether this is the right boundary condition, and that has yielded sort of a good result for us. So we've kind of pretty set on that definition around weekly viewing fans and weekly interacting fans.
I like that. We also look at those two audience groups, the consumer and the producer. In our case, we also have a third one that we try to differentiate, which are the communities admin. They don't necessarily produce the content, but they're kind of the glue, the facilitator for these things. And what we see is like, if a community does not have an active moderator that comes in there and takes down the aggressive comments, the bad posts, the spam, the stuff like that, community tend to degenerate, and at some point it just go quiet because people stop using them. So for us, we're looking at those three communities. The other thing we're doing is like, that's going to be a little bit dependent on each product, but you're going to need to go analyze your viral loops. The things that helps you notify and engage users. What are they based on? If likes, reaction, and comments give you something with those viral loops, that's obviously something you gotta keep an eye on, because that's what gets the user coming back the next day and the day after and the day after. Other community products, it's only based on number of posts. So like you gotta go figure out like what are the things that like essentially you're gonna notify, push, send a notification to users saying, hey, there's something new, you should come here. If a thumb up is the thing that you want to get a user back in the community for, you can, but you know, there's limited value, especially if the person is more of a consumer of content type of person. You want to notify them when there's something that matches their interest, so that they go in there like, oh wow, like this is the thing I want to be, and like I'm super excited about that, and then they might organically come back the next day without you notifying them, and like that's a huge sign of success.
Yeah, I mean, for us, you know, we don't have a million features yet, but I would say events attended by users, and you know, how many posts they feed. You know, we have like a feed post, so how many posts they've made, things like that. Also, you know, time it takes a user to join and then post an event of their own. Because our users can post events of their own, and if they're doing that, then you know, they're really into the platform and they want to, you know, experience this with other users as well.
It's funny that a lot of the metrics you guys have for communities, we have for customers. So we're always obsessed, like which customers are healthy, which ones are not going to churn. It's a 2024 problem to have. Yeah.
Thierry, I'm kind of eager. Are we all engaged customer on your platform?
Only the high scores.
Highly engaged. Highly engaged, which is great.
I'll be attending the event, so.
Yeah. Appreciate that.
I haven't seen an NPS score from you, so.
Awesome. Any other questions from the group? Go ahead, Kenzie.
It's clear that, you know, chat is something that's really important across all online communities, but what do you think is next? What are people going to be looking for, you know, in the future when it comes to building communities?
I was chatting with some of the folks here, but we are experimenting now with audio as another modality, and it works for our use case because there's a asymmetry between there's one special user, which is the creator, and then there are the fans. And we're starting off with giving the creator the ability to go live with audio. And for us, it strikes the sweet spot between not a huge amount of effort for the creator because they're not on camera, but a huge amount of ROI in terms of feeling closeness with their fans, and fans feeling like, oh, I'm really in there with the creator. And sometimes the creator's kids would be like, you know, make noise in the background. It just makes you really feel like you're part of their world. So that's something that we're where we're going next. But I think all modalities eventually are valuable in some form or the other in community. Like text is obviously the most ubiquitous, but audio, video for sure. Live video is something that we will likely do in the future. It's not on our roadmap yet, but I wouldn't rule it out.
I'm going to go with format as well. I think that's important. There's different ways of expressing yourself, and the more format you give to user, they can find the way that represents them and the way they like to communicate. I think that the other piece that's important is the integration with the rest of your product. There's group/community product on every platform you can think of. The question is like, why should people use your platform to have a conversation there? And that means that there's value, there's something you're leveraging from your other products that actually ties in. It can be part of your mission. In the case of Nextdoor, look, we are a neighborhood social network, and neighborhood are basically defined by geography. Everything we can bring that has geographical component inside of the community, we start winning because other platforms don't have that. We have something that's distinctive. So we can find communities that are mapped to a specific location, community that exchange and converse around a specific place. Anything that's going to be based on that geography is where we start becoming unique, distinctive, and then becomes a draw. The user want to come use our platform because of that, because that's not something that Facebook or Discord or other platforms have. So that's our strength for us at geography. Every company needs to go find their own, but like that, I think that like the more you bring that into your product, that's when you start winning.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have, our goal of our company is to get people off of the app right now in, you know, sort of IRL experiences. So chat is, you know, our main source of like people organizing the event and then attending the event. So I'd say that's our main goal right now. Audio, thanks to Stream, we have the audio messages, so I think that's a big leg up as well. If you're going to ask me like, okay, way down the line or something like that, I think virtual presences and stuff like that are very cool, and I think that's going to be a big factor in building communities in the next 5 to 10 years.
Awesome, thank you. So, first of all three of you represent platforms that have a nice way of having an addicting sort of aspect to them to keep folks engaged. And I haven't been on girlgroup, obviously for reasons, but there's a lot of actually addicting elements of Nextdoor and Patreon which keep you coming back, which is a lot of fun. I think the next generation, as you all mentioned, is how do you get more presence and how do you make people feel more connected, even more connected. So I think what we're going to do is in the next session we're going to talk just a little bit about, we talked about Stream having our feeds and our chat product, and they've both been tremendously successful. And we're going to be introducing our third leg of the stool, so to speak, which we're really excited to discuss here in the next few minutes. And I think it'll segue nicely based on some of the things you all are looking to do down in the future. So I think without further ado, I think it'd be great to maybe give Terry a moment to share the next component, as you will, the next future of component of the Stream portfolio of products.
Yeah, we can talk a little bit about video and audio. I mean, I think the thing that happens is most of our customers started asking us for audio and video for quite a long time. It's been years, about 2 years in development actually. And after this very long time, we finally have our video product ready for production usage. We're actually about to announce in like one week from now that it's out of beta and generally available, so really cool. So we listened to our customers and we really thought, what can we do differently for video? We don't want to be like Agora, we don't want to be like LiveKit, we wanted to build something new. And what we came up with is one API to do both live streaming, video calling, and audio rooms. Because traditionally, a lot of the solutions had different APIs for one or the other. So you'd start a video call, but then what if you want to do a webinar for your company, right? Is that a video call? Is that a live stream? And you get into these edge cases that kind of break the user experience. Video historically has also been quite hard to build. So people would get stuck on like changing the resolution, changing what is being displayed. If you look at something like Zoom, when you're on a large video call, it's obviously not sending you thousands of video feeds, right? Like it's automatically handling which things you're looking at, what part should be shown, what should be low quality, what should be high quality. But then all the video solutions made you like select this stuff manually. It was just it was a pain. So the whole idea here with video, let's go to the next slide. The whole idea here with video is that in this market where video use cases are becoming more popular, and they are, like think about education. In the past, you would use video, but there were no transcriptions, there were no summaries. Like the whole wave of AI is making video more accessible to many different categories of apps. Education is one, healthcare is another, automatic notes for like patient-to-doctor communications, picking up. New social apps like AirChat is a great example, right? Like where people are combining. I don't know if has anyone tried AirChat already? Yeah, familiar? Okay, so people are using AI combined with audio and video to build more apps, and so the video market is growing. What we are doing differently, next slide, in the video space is one, we're giving you modern SDKs, so you can literally build video or audio in a couple days. We've seen customers go live in like 1 or 2 days. We ship an edge network of servers around the world, so that makes sure that the latency is low, that you don't lose packets, that when you're talking to someone there's not that, oh, were you talking, type of annoying delay, right? So it's very important to have the edge network as well. And that also helps with the scalability side of things. So if you look at like Midjourney, they're doing a large audio room experience with Stream and already scaling up to large user bases. Hopefully also Patreon. But yeah, the whole idea of this like edge network and this view cascading is that you can scale your audio rooms, your video calls, your live streaming experiences really well. Let's skip ahead to the little video and do like, let's run the video. So here are some examples of how the video calling experience works. We provide both UI components as well as the low-level SDK. So we've seen customers build things like Zoom, telehealth, education, audio rooms, gaming type of live streaming as well. So for gaming, live streaming, or other types of live streaming, you tend to need like that low latency experience, especially when you're engaging with your audience, right? Like if you're playing a game and the audience is like reacting to stuff that happened 20 seconds ago, it's hard for you as a creator to be like engaging and interactive. So with our low latency live streaming, it takes about 100, 200 milliseconds, so you can really engage with your audience at the same time. All right, that's us.
And of course you get the chat piece completely built in, and the robust chat experience to go along with video. We all know how limited chat is in most video experiences right now. So we feel like that'll give an even more engaging experience. So super exciting, Terry. I think we're eager to see, especially the folks that are in this room, you know, really take it for a test drive and see what it can do to help with your community building.
Amazing. Thank you all. Please feel free to join us down below. Let's have some more hors d'oeuvres and also some champagne as well.
Thank you.
Guys.
Thanks everyone.